Greece is what everyone wants to know about. I mean, there's so much debate. Who's going to bail out Greece? Will they need the money? How much are they going to borrow? Is there a risk, first of all, that Greece will actually default?
Well, let's put it in perspective. Greece's debt to GDP ratio is 120%, a little less than that. Greece, if it could borrow at reasonable interest rates, 2–3%, that would mean 3–4% of GDP to service the debt. Greece can easily afford that. No probability, no chance of default. On the other hand, if markets go crazy, no one, even if you had a 50% debt GDP ratio, can manage with crazy markets. And we know from the behavior of the markets before the crisis, after crisis, that they often behave in a manner that cannot be described as rational in any sense. That is one of the main points of this conference.
It does seem that these markets possibly are overreacting, but we're also hearing from the European Union that Germany doesn't want Greece to borrow at these preferential rates of 2–3% that the IMF is offering. So at the end of the day, will Greece have to only ask a bailout to the IMF?
If Europe doesn't come to the assistance, and if markets continue to be crazy in the way that they are, then it does make sense for Greece to go to the IMF. It would be sad for Europe, because the whole European project, the whole Euro project, requires a kind of solidarity, requires a kind of cooperation. You can view the United States as a currency area, 50 states all using the same currency. It works, but it works because we have a fiscal system that when California unemployment rate goes up, the federal government pays for the cost of the unemployed. The system that was created a decade ago had some fundamental flaws. Many of us were very skeptical. What we said was the test of the euro would not come when things were going well. The test would come when Europe faced a difficulty. Many of us hoped when Europe faced that difficulty that there was enough solidarity of all the countries, including Germany, to come to the rescue. And Germany has to recognize that part of the problem are its huge surpluses. It is the major beneficiary of the current arrangements, that if there hadn't been a single currency, the exchange rate of the other countries, Spain, Greece, all the other countries, would go down, and its whole model, the whole German model, would be put to test. So it is the beneficiary, and yet it doesn't want to pay. It's not even a cost here, because Greece would not default. And if it lent them the money, it would be making a profit. If it lent the money at 3.5%, it would make a profit over the cost of the funds it faces.
But Professor, what does it mean for the European model then, if you say it was flawed to start off with, because we don't have federal states like we have in the US? What is going to be left of this Eurozone after the Greek crisis?
That's the question that's up for discussion. I think that unless the Eurozone comes to the help of Greece, the next issue is going to be, we won't mention the names of the country, but everybody knows what they are, and the whole system will begin to fall apart. And some people suggest that the solution is for Germany to leave the system and let the rest of them work together, and that would adjust the exchange rate between Germany and the rest of the system. And that would restore some kind of equilibrium. You know, in the United States is right now complaining about China's surplus, because China has fixed its exchange rate relative to the dollar. China will eventually adjust, but the problem is the surpluses of China are imposing external costs on others, and Germany's surpluses are imposing costs on the rest of Europe.
on China, we're hearing rumors and talk that actually they're ready to let their currency float a little bit. Do you believe this is the case?
Yes, China has always said that it wants, it doesn't have a fixed exchange rate. Its exchange rate will change, but it wants to do it in a way that doesn't put at risk its economy, that it does it in a stable way. Its economy was exposed to enormous risk because of the mismanagement of the American economy. We all understand that. The U.S. Created a bubble, the bubble broke, it had enormous global ramifications, and China rightly says we have to protect our citizens and our economy.
Are we not in another bubble now in China? That's just getting bigger and bigger.
That is a real risk that U.S. monetary policy, flooding the world with liquidity, unfortunately very little of it translating into lending in America, is helping create bubbles all over the world and creating instability in many other countries of the world. I think the Fed has not taken into account fully the global cost of its policies.